Welcome back to Morning Express. It's now 4 minutes after 7. Today is Tuesday, the 22nd day of November 2016. And it's time for us to look at the person of interest. Now, the person we have this morning is none other than Dr. Ekuro Aukot. He was secretary of the Committee of Experts that drafted the Constitution 2010. And he's also a presidential contender with the Third Way Alliance. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Morning, Itonga.
Good to have you. And we'll get to your presidential ambition and maybe the vision that you have for this country in just a bit. Right. But we'd like to start off person of interest, but first of all, understanding and knowing who Ekuro Aukot is. Maybe just give us a brief history of yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school.
Yeah, so like I say about myself, I'm actually a son of a nomadic pastoralist from the northern part of Kenya. I was born in a place called Kapedo, which came into the news in 2014.
With rather unfortunate circumstances.
Rather unfortunate circumstances when 21 of our police officers were actually killed by a militia group suspected to be from the Pokot community. And Kenyans will also recall that actually President Uhuru went and visited the place and he was told what happened, even though he didn't take much. So I come from that area, and so I was born there, went to Kapedo Primary School. Unfortunately, my family was displaced sometimes back in the 1970s, late 1970s. So together with my mother and other siblings, we moved to Baringo, a place called Mogotio, where I also went to school, in Mogotio Primary initially. And then my brother used to work in the Kenya Navy. So I went to Mtongwe Primary School in Mombasa. Came back to Nakuru, went to Adhinai Primary School in Nakuru. Then I'll go back to Turkana again in Kapedo.
You seem to...
I'm very I think I was following my nomadic roots in, even in the pursuit of education and knowledge. So I went back to Turkana. Eventually I finished primary school in Majimoto, that's in Baringo. And then I will go to Cabernet Boys High School. And then I'll go to the University of Nairobi to study a law degree. Immediately thereafter, Kenya School of Law to become an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. That was in 1999. And then I'll get a scholarship to go to the University of Warwick in the UK as a Chevening scholar to do my master's in law in development. Then from there, I mean, I thought really with a master's degree, I've gotten enough for what I needed, but I didn't realize that the thirst for academic
was still in you, and you wanted more.
So I was very lucky. Again, I was offered a scholarship, what's called Graduate Teaching Assistantship Fellowship at the University of Warwick to teach alongside a professor, John McEldony, constitutional and administrative law in the School of Law. So I taught law for 4 years at the University of Warwick, but also at the same time doing my PhD, because that was the condition for getting a scholarship. So I completed with my studies. I really wanted to come back home, something that many people were surprised, because a lot of people then, I remember, the compatriots from many parts of Africa, Zimbabwe, South Africa, who really wanted to stay home. For some reason, I felt this urge, I wanted to come back home.
If maybe from a personal perspective, were you doing well in the UK before for you to want to come back home? Because you'll find that there are many people who, once they go abroad, their life there compared to what they think is going to happen when they come back home, they feel like coming back home is a disadvantage. What gave you that disadvantage?
Well, I remember being asked this question, why are you leaving? You're teaching, there are opportunities in the UK. I always felt that I had some unfinished business in my country, in my village. Actually, I used to use the phrase, I have unfinished business in my village, because it was never lost to me where I came from. I knew, for example, the struggles people go through in a country like, in our country, in Turkana, where I was brought up. I saw the same struggles in Baringo. I saw the same struggles in Mombasa, Mtongwe, where I went to. I saw many struggles in many parts of Africa. So I thought to myself, and of course that gave me an awakening. Why is this country described as the first world? And why is Kenya a developing country? Because again, this consciousness came to me as a student of law in development. So I was studying the idea that how can we use law as an instrument of social engineering, social development. So this awakened so many things to me. I questioned so many things. I learned about transnational corporations, how they exploit developing countries for the benefit of their own countries. And I felt that, Africa and Kenya in particular had a lot of potential that has not really been exploited for the betterment of the lives of Kenyans. So, I mean, even if I fast forward to you just a little bit, again, coming from Turkana and drawing from my experience from Turkana, there's a story told about the Turkana community in 1920 by Sir Geoffrey Archer that was writing to the Queen in England about his experience as a district officer in the Northern Frontier districts in 1920. So he says, there's really nothing useful that can come out of controlling the people called the Turkana. That the Turkana were just but a problem that can best be transferred elsewhere. That there's no economic value that can come out of controlling this region called the Turkana or the nomadic community. That the best you can do to them is to give them protection of the British flag. But look, fast forward 2012, oil is discovered in Turkana, a lake is discovered in Turkana beneath, and you can see all roads, everybody. I mean, today you cannot speak about extractive sector in Kenya without referring. So, some of these things still confirm, justify my leaving the United Kingdom to come to Kenya, because I believed strongly that we can change our countries. We can still build developed economies in Kenya, in Africa, just the same way I saw the beauty of transportation in England.
Systems that work.
Systems that work, education that works. Why can't we build it? We have resources, we have everything. So that really inspired me to come back, because I felt I need to make a contribution to my country.
Okay. Would you say that now, after your imagining or thinking that you can use law to develop a country, would you say that it is working so far, given that you are the secretary for the committee of experts that came up with the Constitution 2010, and really that is a framework to help this country move from one place to another? But do you think that's happening?
No, it is not happening. You see, the whole idea of development must be predicated upon certain order and discipline in any country. It's about systems, it's about functionality of a state. And if you think about functionality of a state, the sovereignty of a state, you're talking about institutions, education, health, infrastructure, and all those things. And all those things must function within a certain framework, a certain order. So when we were doing our Constitution 2010, the idea was that Kenya was entering into the cask of renewal, that previous legislation, previous constitutions that were not even written in Kenya, written in the Lancaster House Conference, did not really emanate from within the framework of the Kenyan society. I mean, if you look at the whole idea of law, law really is a social science. It's if you look at the social foundations of law, it's supposed to emanate from within the framework of society. So it's about how we correlate, how we behave ourselves, how we organize our economies, how we, all aspects, political, social, cultural. And therefore, a certain level of discipline, fidelity to the law, to the system, is actually what has made many countries prosper. Countries that do not follow a certain pattern, a certain discipline, basically is what become failed states. And you're looking at many around the region. I'm sure you see examples of, for example, South Sudan, Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and many other countries that I can tell you that do not follow a certain disciplinary process. And that also calls for a certain level of stewardship, a certain leadership to be in place that can say, this is a strategic direction my country must take. So, for example, in the 1960s, we've had this narrative many times, and I think it's important for us to continue retelling it, that it is said that Kenya was at par with the tiger economies of Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and the rest. In fact, even better, South Korea, for example. But the question then became, then where did we go wrong? These are our age mates, 50 years later, so that people like, countries like Malaysia are associated with people like Mahathir Mohamad. Singapore associated with someone like Lee Kuan Yew. And these leaders said, this is the direction our country must take. So much so that today in Singapore, even a beggar on the streets of Singapore is actually a millionaire. If you look at their GDP, which is about, I think, $30,000 per year. So why isn't Kenya in that state?
So the question, of course, then remains, why aren't we in that state? Are you saying that purely it's our leadership?
It's many things, but like I said, first and foremost, is a question of stewardship. Which direction, as a leader, must you take your people? And I hope we'll come to this reason around in the context of why I'm running for president of Kenya. Because we need to discuss that, contextualize that. So at the end of the day, it's about a leadership of a country taking advantage of the opportunities and potential of its country and guiding it. I mean, even if we were to draw from the biblical readings, pick the children of Israel, for example. If it wasn't for the leadership of somebody like Moses and thereafter Joshua, leading them to the promised land. So leadership is very important. But alongside that leadership is a question of discipline. Just if you are to look into the Bible, you look at the 10 Commandments. Go to the Muslims, we talk about the Quran, leading the way in which, even beside the Quran, we talk about the hadiths, of the caliphates that guide a society into a certain end. So stewardship is very important. Look at countries like America, which sometimes people talk about, make reference to over 200 years. It took about 13 unions, gathered in Philadelphia to write a constitution for their country and say, let's pursue happiness for everybody. Question of justice. So leadership is absolutely critical. If you do not have a proper leader that takes your country this direction, then you will not have a country. Again, I'll give you a very simple example, but very important. Rwanda. I'm also a student of forced migration. So I need to study a little bit about forced migration and refugee issues in the region. In 1994, everybody will agree Rwanda was literally a graveyard. People had slaughtered each other in the name of your Tutsi, your Hutu. It took the leadership of someone like President Paul Kagame to say, we need to stop this nonsense. We need to stop referencing to each other as Tutsi and Hutu. What are the basic irreducible minimums that will make us Rwandese or Rwandans? And so much so that today you go to Rwanda, you'll be shocked.
It's a totally transformed
level
country.
Of cleanliness, for example, the discipline, right from when you arrive at the airport, you cannot be seen with a paper bag. It is taken away from you.
Even on their roads, you cannot
Even on their
drive just
road,
the
you
way
can
you
see
want.
people clean. If you try to talk to a policeman in a manner likely to suggest that you want to bribe them, that's already trouble for you. But come back to us, and I hope we'll come talk about this. Just look at theft of public funds that's going on in this country, and we will speak about that because that's one of the strongest pillars of
In fact, let's do this now that we are already there. Let's talk about your throwing in your hat for president. Why? I read one of your articles, and one of the things you had said is that you would like to come back and defend the Constitution. Do you feel like the Constitution is not being upheld as it should?
So there are 5 reasons why I've actually, offered to run for president of Kenya. And this is the reason why we formed an alliance called Third Way Alliance.
Right.
So the first reason for us is that, again, drawing from my own background, which is this son of a nomad from Turkana, seeing all the problems, the difficulties, the challenges of life every day, we feel that this Kenya has never addressed the question of economic and social justice for every Kenyan. That's a big problem for us in the country. There is so much inequality, so much inequity in all our spheres of life. Pick teachers, for example. A teacher, right from kindergarten to primary school to secondary to university, who actually grows the human resource in terms of instilling knowledge in this country, is not respected in the same way, for example, now we respect an MCA, member of the county assembly, a member of parliament. So those inequalities, communities from a social perspective, some communities are elevated to this level and others. You will think that a poor man in Ishaweri, Kiambu, is better than a poor man in my village in Kapedo or in Bondo or anywhere in Mombasa. Yet they are the same. So it's about the policies of government, the specific things that a leadership or a government of the day should do to make sure you address economic and social injustices in Kenya.
And maybe for us to get a solution, we need to find the genesis. Where did we go wrong? There was a time where a teacher was a respected career, for example. Not anymore.
I would say it's when we began to commercialize politics. I mean, the question of when we start looking at not valuing the things that build us, Like you say, a teacher was very revered back in the days. Even right now, people still respect teachers, but not at the same level. So it looks like our politics, the manner in which we do our politics, which for me is really public life. People choose to say politics is dirty, is bad. I don't see it that way. I see politics as public life. It's about education. It's about security. It's about those issues of justice. It's about appreciation of our own. So it's the way in which we have elevated politics above everything else, so much that we forget the teacher as basically the bedrock of for example, the knowledge, the human resource that this country has. So it's also a question of insensitive leadership in place. You see, when we were doing the Constitution of Kenya, we created a commission called Salaries and Remuneration Commission.
Correct.
And the Salaries and Remuneration Commission was supposed to address some of these issues. What is the justification for somebody called just a member of parliament without certain levels of knowledge and competence and experience, taking home, for example, 1 million Kenya shillings? And a professor, a doctor of laws or economies, people who are really,
the full time to study and...
Exactly, taken time, a medical doctor who studies for 5 years medicine to treat that lackluster leader who takes home 1 million, and this doctor takes home 150. So we feel this is not right. So that's why one of our strongest pillars is economic and social, addressing economic and social injustice in Kenya. We must end it, because this creates friction between us as communities, as individuals, as just classes. Number two, theft of public funds. As you well know, that this is now has become our definition. It's who we are. It's become our first name.
It's almost becoming acceptable.
It's acceptable. And so that when one of our own steals from public funds, it's okay. And yet it's not the entire community that steals. So what we have really thought hard at Third Way Alliance, and we are saying, we lose a third of our national budget to corruption cartels, to thieves. We don't even call it corruption anymore. Because, Gitonga, I don't know in your mother tongue whether there's a word called corruption.
No, there's no word.
I can't find it either in Turkana, and I'm sure I've spoken to many of my Luo friends. They can't find it either. So the only language we know is theft. I mean, let's pick NYS, for example. The NYS scam, everybody agrees, 1.6 billion Kenya shillings was lost. We also know the people who are implicated in it. But the question becomes, I didn't steal it. I think it's you. I think it's so-and-so who did it.
But now, from a legal mind and a legal perspective, as a lawyer and a very well-renowned lawyer, how do you close in and close, a series of that, whereas you don't, because right now, really, it is between the court and evidence, between here and there. It is you, it's me, it's somebody else. How do you close in on that and prosecute?
First of all, to fight corruption, the greatest resource in fighting corruption is political goodwill. If you don't have political goodwill in fighting corruption, you will never fight it. You will never. So it must start from the top. So it's like the idea of leadership is actually a value that must cascade downwards. Everybody must know this is what the leader does not want. Go to neighboring Tanzania. John Pombe Magufuli fights corruption every day because he knows what it is. For us, corruption, this theft of public funds actually kills. Let's pick health docket, for example. When 5 billion cannot be accounted or stolen from the health docket, we see that as actually killing the most sick, is denying people medication, is denying our children under the age of 5 vaccination. And therefore, in the long run, actually, we are probably developing a dysfunctional, sick society because of just the health docket. So, from the top, a leader, a president, must be able to condemn this in equal terms, not in wishy-washy terms, not protecting people around him. By now, if I was President Uhuru, P.S. Muraguri, C.S. Mahilo will not be in office. Because, again, this is one thing that I learned back in my days at Warwick. I taught law in the UK, taught constitutional law, a country that has no written constitution. But there is strong values. They talk of the convention of resignation. So much that when your public office holding is under question,
you automatically resign.
You don't stay a day longer because that's giving fidelity to the law. So, but then this value must come from the top. So to fight corruption, we need political goodwill. But more specifically, as a trained lawyer, and I've litigated, I will bring into play. I mean, it will not be so easy for anybody to tell me that even on a balance of probability that actually an offense was not committed here. So I believe that even going for the president, I should be able to inject my professional training into.
Let's do this one by one.
We will jail people. We will recover assets. In fact, we have proposed at Third Way Alliance that we are going to have actually the hall of shame in this country. We are going to stop the leakages. Where do the leakages come from? First of all, when you appoint individuals with questionable characters to be in charge of our resources, you are actually perpetrating corruption. So when we stop all that, and everybody knows that this is the narrative of the presidency of Kenya and the Third Way Alliance, trust me, we will end corruption. This thing is, we can finish it.
Okay.
Because it kills.
So that's your plan for ending corruption, jailing and making sure that anybody who appears on that hall of shame, excuse me, does not hold public office. But one might also ask the question, who are you with in the Third Way Alliance?
Well, of course there are officials of Third Way Alliance, but Third Way Alliance is actually a clarion call for Kenyans. The reason we call it Third Way Alliance is because we are saying, let's go back to 53 years of the independence of this country, since the independence of this country. It's been betrayal all along. One of the frailties of our Kenyan society, Gitonga, has been the failure of leadership. For the last 53 years, Kenya has talked about the dynasties of Odinga and Kenyatta. That's a fact. Kibaki, I think, was an accident. So the dominant narrative is that it's either Odinga and Kenyatta. So, and you hear them talk about the two-horse race. So where are Kenyans? Because if you look at the two-horse race, it's about family dynasties. Where are the rest of Kenya? So we came with Third Way Alliance as a clarion call to Kenyans, to people like yourself, to the middle class. We are trying to prick the conscience of the working class of this country. We are telling them, you are paying so much taxes. You are being taxed. Your taxes are being stolen. Hence our pillar number 2, which is end theft of public funds. Tribalism is our third pillar. Again, if you look at the whole idea of who are we in this, we are in this because we want to bring all the tribes of Kenya into this political alliance. Tribalism or negative ethnicity has defined our coexistence as a people. Gitonga, you and I never wrote a letter to God or to our creator, whoever it is, that you should be born either Gitonga from, I think, the Meru or Kikuyu community, or I should be born Ekuro from the Turkana, or my friend Okango should be born a Luo. We never. This is a natural accident. What we believe in Third Way is we believe in diversity, celebrating our diversity. I am married from Nyeri. My wife is from Nyeri. We have 2 lovely daughters. We call them Tukuyus. Because we're saying in the next 15, 20, 30 years, we are not here. I don't want anybody looking at these girls and condemning them as Turkana, condemning them as Kikuyu. We want to build a Kenya that's one. Okay. So tribalism is one of the reasons why we are saying, let's bring everybody on board. The manner in which leadership has been propagated in the past has been about this tribe symbolically being represented by one of their own and causing enmity between other tribes.
All right, Ekuro, and the question here then would be, because, I mean, politicians talk, and they talk intelligently, they talk very well, but when it comes to implementation, it becomes a problem. Now, you as Ekuro going for president, if you were president, how would you deal with ethnicity, negative ethnicity?
First of all, I will punish it. I'm not going to tolerate the kind of diatribe that comes from the political spheres. If truly we wanted to address, to end tribalism or negative ethnicity, first of all, the face of the national government should be a symbolism to us bringing together Kenyans. I don't know whether you've read Article 130 of the Kenya Constitution. Article 130 of the Kenya Constitution, we deliberately put it there to try and address this issue of tribalism. And we said, if you are forming the national executive as a president, what should be the outlook of that national executive? The language in the Constitution of Kenya, which is simple, straightforward, can be implemented by anybody, even if you are not a lawyer, is to say, when forming the national executive, regard shall be had to the ethnic and regional diversity of the peoples of Kenya. Now, you look at Jubilee government as it is. It's predominantly what? 2 tribes. So, again, that already takes away the idea that we are actually one country, that we are one people. You're able to. And we gave a simple formula. It talks of maximum 22 cabinet secretaries. And I remember one of Uhuru's, I think must have been an advisor, asking me, Ekuro, how will you, you're so critical about this government, how will you, address that issue? How will you balance? I said, simple. My first appointments of 20 or 22 will be 22 different tribes of Kenya.
What about their qualifications?
The second, yes, let me tell you, and that's an excuse people may use. If you want to find the most qualified in every tribe in Kenya today, you will find. You will find even among the Boni, the Malakote, the El Molo.
That may be true, but if I use an example possibly of, say, the IEBC, where we have very qualified, or not even the IEBC, the EACC, where we have very qualified people, but because of a system that seems to not want to favor those who qualify, many have not applied. So you're left with those who have applied. One might use the same reason and say, even with the cabinet secretaries, we will take those who will apply. And if you look at those who have applied, then maybe there is not that much of balance in terms of tribes.
Those are 2 things. The earlier point we are debating is about a political decision by, say, a president. I will apply Article 135 and achieve that symbolism of one nation. 22 different cabinet secretaries from 22 different tribes. The next batch will be 20 different permanent secretaries from 20 different tribes. And there you have your 42 tribes of Kenya representing the national government. Now, to issues of application of jobs, I mean, again, this is individuals. But as a country, cognizant of the fact that ethnicity, negative ethnicity is one of our major problems, I will encourage as many people as possible from many tribes to apply and come in on a formula that accommodates all that. Again, our constitution is very clear. Our constitution talks about regional and economic ethnic imbalance. When I was chairman of the IEBC selection panel in 2011, we applied a formula in which we actually found people competent in every part of this republic. So it's doable. Again, it's about political goodwill. So that's really our pillar number 3. Or is it number 4? Number 4 for us is taking youth and women into government. You know, when I was listening to the director, you're talking about youth empowerment. That's really a tired narrative. It's very tired. What we are saying to the youth of this country is that stop, youth and women together, stop being political flower girls. We want you to form the next government. Why is it that we celebrate our youth when they win golds in the marathon, when they win rugby, and we do not trust them to head the dockets in the Ministry of Sports? We do not trust them to head the National Youth Enterprise Funds. We create these Youth Enterprise Fund, Women Enterprise Fund. Next thing we do, we put money there and we steal it. So what we are saying to the youth of this country, stop this notion that you are tomorrow's leaders. I'm sure you've had that too back in your days. So that's our 5th pillar, which is really youth and women of this country must belong. Because if there are people who could live longer in this country, who must mean more for this country, it must be the youth, it must be the people of tomorrow. So that's some of the reasons why, 5 reasons why I want to run for president under the Third Way Alliance. We are also saying Third Way because we've been treated to only one narrative in the past. We are asking Kenyans to think outside the box. Think alternative. When Gitonga, your rent falls due at the end of this month, assuming you are Kikuyu, you have a Kikuyu president in State House. Do you actually go to State House, line up there, and wait for Uhuru Kenyatta to give you another because he's one of your own? So it's about opportunity. And if you look at the narrative that has been created for a long time, so long as you have one of our own in State House or in a certain ministry, the assumption is that all of us. So what I think we are saying to Kenyans, and we are challenging Kenyans, these people have eaten your country for long. I think it's a time all of you ate this country. Share this country. Take a bite of this country in equal measure. And if, for example, and this is actually our last pillar, actually, I did not talk to you about, the idea of protecting the constitution, devolution, and the rule of law. For me, that's very close to my heart. When we created devolution, for example, the county, the 47 counties. We were very deliberate. We are saying we are tired of the centralization of national cake. Let's redistribute this. Let the people, say, of Meru, Kiambu, Murang'a, Turkana, Marsabit, Mandera, Busia, determine who their leaders are. Devolution comes with resources. Manage those resources for yourself. We even gave them a formula under Schedule 4, Part 2. And we said, these are the functions of the county government. This is the envelope. Coming from Turkana, for the first time in the history of this country, we are getting 10 billion Kenya shillings.
Okay.
Can you imagine what 10 billion Kenya shillings can do to a pastoralist economy? So protecting the constitution and the rule of law for me is very dear. So I'm not surprised, for example, when Uhuru's government began to tear gas people who are demonstrating against corruption. I mean, I was tear gas together with Team Courage when we were in Freedom Corner, just because we wanted to take a referendum to the office of the president. You know very well that Governor Isaac Ruto Bomet was also tear gas, just because he wanted to find out why you are harassing the youth. So we are clawing back to that era when, the constitution was not really the impetus that drove this country.
All right, now you've criticized the government even right now, quite a number of times. And the question then would remain, why not join the opposition to form the next government?
Unless you didn't hear my narrative, I say that the narrative in this country has been the same people. If I join, I'm interested in newness. I'm interested in thinking outside the box. What newness will I be injecting into this country by joining the opposition? Or even by joining Jubilee? As people have told me, join the government and change from within. The same people. Let me take Kenyans back to the Grand Coalition government. In 2007, we saw that unfortunate situation in Kenya. Both Raila and Uhuru and Kalonzo, talk about all these people, were in the Grand Coalition government. They worked as one. Nothing for them changed. So the question for us as Third Way Alliance is this. These alliances are looking at Kenya in the short term. All they are interested is to win an election. The moment they win an election, therein begin the problems of Kenya. Tribalism, theft of public funds, extrajudicial killing. Historical injustice reports are shelved.
So are you saying that you don't have any confidence in anybody within the opposition right now to be the president and make a difference?
None of them. I can tell you, look, none of them. I was in Bomet. I was invited by Governor Isaac Ruto for his Thanksgiving, because somebody had worked with in the constitution, and I went to go and say, express my support for him. Because I condemn police brutality. We condemn police brutality in Third Way Alliance. I challenged them there and then. How is it that all of them are seated here with different outfits? They have worked together before. Musalia Mudavadi was there. Kalonzo Musyoka was there. Gideon Moi was there. Some of the governors. And I told them, you people, although you guys blacked us out, I mean, you didn't even mention that we did it. I challenged them and told them, why is it that you people have never found a formula to actually fix this country? You've been friends, you've worked in government together before. Someone like Kalonzo Musyoka has been, I think, a minister for over 20 years. You go to, say, Ekuro today in his still poverty. You go to Omabe in Nyanza, who have supported Raila Amolo Odinga for all these years, even when he was the prime minister, the supervisor of all dockets. There is no single fish processing plant in Omabe, despite the islands of Mfangano and Rusinga Island pumping into the GDP of Kenya about 7 billion Kenya shillings more. So the question we are asking Kenyans, look at this leadership. It's been the same. In fact, if there are leaders who have perfected the language of change and reform and political conmanship, all these leaders have been there for a long time. All we are telling Kenyans, think outside the box. We are able to fix this country. Again, drawing from my experience, I know what it means to go to school hungry. I know what it means to sleep hungry. I know what it means to go to school without school fees, being chased out of school. I do not think the current leadership that say they want to lead this country actually can relate to those problems. They cannot. They are not able to fix, they are not able to talk eloquently about economic and social injustice in this country. They are not able to talk about tribe, because what they do is they mobilize their followers along tribal lines, which actually brings a problem to this country. Predominantly Luo Nyanza supports Raila Amolo Odinga. Predominantly Central Kenya supports Kenyatta. That becomes a contestation of tribes.
How would you change that, Ekuro, given that, first of all, you've not told us who is in Third Way Alliance in terms of who is it that you're working with? Because at the end of the day, you can't do this alone.
Listen, I'm not a Lone Ranger in Third Way Alliance. Third Way Alliance has a membership. I mean, unless you want me to really list for you all the members.
Not necessarily listing, but we're talking about alliances here. You're talking about, Raila Odinga and, the people that support him. But now with Third Way Alliance, you'll definitely need support.
As I said to you.
Who is like-minded with you that is on board that can also now put you, as it were?
Okay, what parameters are you using to ask that question? Because I've been asked this question without any basis. When you say, who am I with?
The parameters here would be that somebody who can hold you to account. Once you get into office, and the reason I'm asking this question is because we've had politicians say what you're saying. So what is it that makes you different from them? Why should I believe you and not believe them?
I am seeking, well, because I'm different to them. I've told you, look at the history of Kenya. I don't have any baggage with me. I don't bring any baggage with me into leadership. I am seeking public office, Gitonga. In public office holding, you are accountable to the people of Kenya, to the people that you lead. You are accountable to your party structures, your party officials. So, because I'm seeking public office, I'm guided by the ethos and values of public office holding, right from Article 10 on national principles and governance, Chapter 6 of the Kenya Constitution, the very Constitution of Kenya. When Kenyans elect me as their president next year, I will swear to protect and uphold this Constitution. I'll be held accountable on the basis of this Constitution. So this is public office. So in public office, you don't choose that I'm going to be loyal to this tribe or to this region. You are loyal to the people of Kenya. So as I said, and I keep on saying, ours is a clarion call to Kenyans who are tired. The truth for the matter, Gitonga, is that Kenyans are tired. Kenyans are tired of the same fellows who promise them things but they don't fix. If you look at corruption, for example, corruption, let's be realistic. Corruption at the national level, we blame it to Jubilee government entirely. They have failed. Theft of public funds at the national level have failed. You look at the latest Auditor General report, 22 departments of government cannot account for billions. Health docket cannot account.
Neither can the county government.
Yes, I'm coming to that.
Okay.
So the national government, we blame Uhuru, the buck stops with him. Of course, he has said he doesn't know what to do. We have told him resign if he cannot do. Let's go to the other tier level of government, the county government. In the county government, theft of public funds is happening in equal measure, whether you are in Jubilee or whether you are in CORD. 24 counties of CORD today cannot account for billions of Kenyan shillings meant for development of their people. It is there in the Auditor General report, not Ekuro Aukot saying it. 22 counties of Jubilee cannot account for public funds in equal measure. So they are all thieves, as we call them. One of the counties that belongs to Amani, Lamu, still has question issues around accountability. So, Gitonga, when you tell me, when people suggest to me that join opposition form the next government, I mean, how do I join opposition of people who cannot account to people of Kenya about their money? I've never heard the leadership of these coalitions condemn their governors. What we are saying at Third Way Alliance, if you're going to be a governor under Third Way Alliance, the first port of call for you to account for public funds will be the party leadership itself. I, as a party leader of Third Way Alliance, I will never allow a governor or a member of parliament or an MCA under our party to tarnish the reputation of the party because of allegations of funds. We are putting disciplinary measures. We will question you first and foremost, and we will even support the Auditor General report if he finds you culpable. We will disassociate with you. That's how different we are. You see, Uhuru Kenyatta is very mum when it comes to corruption in Jubilee-controlled counties. Raila Odinga is mum when it comes to ODM-controlled counties. And the narrative is out there that they benefit, that these governors actually endear to themselves. So at the end of the day, it's the people of Kenya who are left vulnerable, left on their own, so that this becomes a cartel of people. That's why we are saying our outfit, Third Way Alliance Kenya, is actually an alliance with and by the people of Kenya. And we are asking people of Kenya to actually partner with us. You members of the media too, we are calling on you. We are calling on the professional bodies. To do business in Kenya today is so difficult. In fact, I was curiously listening to the director of Global Partnership speak about partnership. Listen, this is just another talk show. This is just going to be another conference. Yeah? There is no serious investor who will bring their money into a country that is number 3, is number 3, the most corrupt country in the world. We are number 3 in the whole world. There is no country, investor who can bring his money, hard-earned money, to a country where the presidency of a country has said, there is nothing I can do about corruption. A country of kickback. So it's not possible. So we are different. We are trying to come up with we are coming up with a new narrative. And if Kenyans really listen to us, and let me ask, what do Kenyans lose anyway by electing Ekuro Aukot as their president? Third Way Alliance. Do you want to still go back to the same people who have perfected the art of speaking about, governance, leadership, but they don't really believe in it? I mean, put Raila here, put Uhuru here, and put Ekuro Aukot here, and put all the other guys here. Of all the corruption scandals in this country, is there any that are associated with Ekuro Aukot? None. But I can tell you, we listed about 33 corruption scandals 3 weeks ago, which the media, of course, blacked out, because in those 33 scandals, we actually put names to them. We asked Raila asked questions to answer in regard to XYZ scandal. Uhuru, the same thing. All of this. So if you look at the NYS, for example, NYS has swallowed many people in this country, including from the land acquisition and all that. We are saying we can think outside the box. Gitonga, why is it that people say, Ekuru, you're a renowned lawyer? I have done work in countries outside Kenya. Recently, I was a chief technical advisor to the constitutional review process in Liberia. I wrote the roadmap for the constitutional review process in Lesotho. I've been a panel expert on constitutional review processes in Tunisia, in Egypt, in Zimbabwe, and Zambia, in South Sudan. How is it that people celebrate this lawyer, but you don't trust me to be the steward of this country? I know exactly what to fix in this country. We have a plan for this country. We can speak confidently about those issues.
You've mentioned and said it severally, we. Who is we? And the reason I'm asking that, there's an article that had also been written where it was said that Third Way Alliance may have a very good document on paper, but lacks the support at the grassroots. And let's face it, politics is a game of numbers. There's no way you'd make it to be president if people don't vote for you. You need the numbers. Do you have the feeling of the people on the ground?
Yes, we do. We do have the feeling of the people on the ground. What people do not know, and again, if media gave us fair share of coverage, if the media of Kenya actually believed that there's a new idea here coming and they can actually help us, if media covered us the way they cover...
And media is covering. You are here right now.
Well, I'm here right now.
As a person of interest.
But I'm talking about, when I'm talking about the grassroots, Third Way Alliance has taken its message to Kajiado County, to Makueni, to Kakamega, to Isiolo, to Laikipia. I just come back from Bomet. I've been to Trans Nzoia. I've been to Uasin Gishu. What we have done in all these counties, we are doing what we call town hall meetings, because we believe that these political rallies do not communicate, do not converse with Kenyans. But we are adopting what we call a listening campaign. And we are talking to Kenyans. We actually go have a group of about 100 Kenyans, and we talk to them about the problem. Because what we also believe in Third Way Alliance, we must educate Kenyans. We must make Kenyans understand their civic duty to elect leaders. We don't want Kenyans to be used, to be drummed along tribal lines. So yes, we are working with a number of aspirants. So far, if I showed you our WhatsApp group, we are now at 69 political aspirants at the grassroots level, MCAs and MPs. And I think we have a Taita Taveta senator, Dr. Mwadali, who wants to run under Third Way Alliance. We have Mariam Sheikh, women representative in Garissa. And we have many, many others. So, yes, we are taking our message to the people.
Okay.
In our own small way.
Right.
I mean, and of course, one of our appeal also to Kenyans generally is, we want you to support us. We are the only party that is appealing and will appeal for crowdfunding. Because Kenyans tell us, this is a beautiful idea. We want you to fund us in the same way Americans funded Obama in 2008 by giving him $1, $2. Give us 100 bob, 2,000, wherever you're staying this, and we will come to your village. We will talk to you. We will honestly tell you the kind of Kenya we want. That's who we are, the Third Way Alliance.
All right. Yeah. Now, you were part of the panel that selected the outgoing IEBC commissioners. Yes. And one of the things that, of course, is going to be very critical come on the 8th of August, moving forward, 2017, as we go to the election, is a credible result and a credible referee. Since you were part of the panel that selected the outgoing commissioners, what went wrong? Nothing went wrong, in my view, and I'll tell you why.
I'm reminded, on this question of the electoral management body, I'm reminded of the wisdom of a man called Joseph Stalin, who said that those who cast the vote decide nothing. Those who count the vote decide everything. So the integrity of an electoral management body is absolutely important. We cannot compromise it. But that integrity of a national election management body can easily be compromised where people do not follow certain value systems, when we allow politics to dictate, interfere with these bodies. In my view, nothing went wrong with the IEBC. IEBC was politicized. And I'm not excusing some of the individuals who may have had problems. I know Chairman Hamid Isaac was adversely mentioned in the Chicken Gate scandal. And for me, what we could have done, and we suggested this as Third Way Alliance, let's separate the institution of the IEBC and individuals. Let's apply the rule of law. Had we applied the rule of law and separated those individuals at IEBC, we would go for specific guys, if it's Ahmed Isaac, who may have been implicated in the chicken scandal, and we punish him. We force him out. But the idea of disbanding the whole IEBC, all the commissioners, blanketly condemning all of them without necessarily reasonable cause as to what their offenses are. Again, we are a country that believes in the rule of law. We gave ourselves the 2010 Constitution. So let's be fair to people. For me, I fault the government of Kenya. How is it that we provided the evidence that actually jailed Smith and Osman in England, but we could not prosecute our own? So that's why I say it's the politicization of our institution. So if we really follow the values, if you fix the systems and processes, and this has been our advocacy. As you know, I even offered to broker a truce between IEBC and ODM and Jubilee on the other hand. And I actually went out of my way, met the commissioners, met some of the key persons in the code, and I gave them a formula. And I told them, guys, let's focus on systems and processes. And I'm happy they actually adopted some of our systems. As to whether now we have time, sufficient time, for this commission to be able to manage the election. Because you see, the management of election, the way it's been politicized, Gitonga, is that it's predicated on commissioners. And it's not an institution.
And that actually is where the problem lies.
That's where the problem is.
Whether we change the faces of the people,
exactly.
Do we have an institution that has systems and things and terms and conditions in place that can actually deliver a credible election, regardless of whether it's Ekuro Aukot, who is the chairman, or John, or whoever?
You see, that has been precisely our argument. And that's why we made some 4 propositions. Which actually I'm happy they were adopted. We said, if you fix systems and processes in IEBC, even the devil can supervise our election. Anybody can supervise our election. For example, the institution of the IEBC has always operated on austerity measures. Government has never really wanted to fully fund IEBC. Because if you don't fund IEBC, then the systems and processes you're talking about will not work. For example, the integration of the voter register, and the voter registration and the voting system. This has to be integrated. You have always found 2 systems. It's a simple thing. Audit of systems. Are we able to audit as an external person? Am I able to go to IEBC today and audit their systems? This requires, resources. What's the other one? The other one is the transmission of results.
Right.
The independent transmission of results. Part of the problem we experienced in 2013, or the suspicion that IEBC may have favored Jubilee, was because the IEBC server was hosted by Safaricom, or there was infiltration of the server. So we need to make sure that the transmission of results is independent. Now, that's a question of systems and processes. Like I said in my first point, those systems and processes will not happen if we starve the institution of the IEBC with resources. So it's about funding it, but also giving the independence, but also removing the politics out of it. Like I said, Third Way Alliance, we have noted that the contestation between all these 2 individuals is about winning the presidency. That is it. which is why everybody says we want a certain commissioner to be there. We want a commissioner from Region X, from Tribe X. And that really doesn't give people of Kenya the confidence
that they will deliver.
That they will,
all right.
like right now, the other problem I must mention, the registration of voters. Why is it that we are not giving Kenyans ID cards? We have about 4 million uncollected identity cards. That means 4 million Kenyans disenfranchised. This could actually be my voters. But there may be deliberate effort not to give identity cards to certain people of certain regions, which is why you hear in some parts like Kipia, Isiolo, northern part of Kenya, you have to be screened first. I have never had the screening of people, say, in Nyanza or in central Kenya or in some other parts, because people from that region, maybe the politicians from that region protect, they talk the loudest from there. So, but the rest of us, the marginalized groups, the so-called small tribes, are being told, are you really Kenyan? I mean, I never heard in the history of Kenya that as a Turkana, I'm required actually to bring a screening card to get an ID. I never had. This is all just political
All right, I think we are running out of time, and I just want to refer to a tweet that you tweeted not too long ago, and this, of course, is because as part of media, you mentioned that we gave you a blackout, although we have you here on set today, and you mentioned and said, for how long will one regurgitate the same folk and still call it reporting news?
Yeah.
That, I guess, was a jab that you were throwing at media. What exactly?
Yes, I was. Okay. We analyzed with my, because we were invited into this party, several party leaders were invited into Bomet. And when the media was reporting, it's your main news, 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock news, you mentioned about all party leaders, but you never really mentioned about Third Way Alliance party leader, Ekuro Aukot, even though I took the stage, I spoke for quite some time to the people. So there is like a deliberate effort to continue the same narrative. And this is really what makes the media part of the problem of Kenya. That you keep on reporting. I mean, you don't think outside the box. For the media of Kenya, news is following Raila, Uhuru, Ruto, whether they say anything useful for this country or not. That one would have thought that a really informed, decisive, analytical media will pick the idea of newness that the Third Way Alliance is actually coming up with and compare it to what already exists. But instead, actually, this does not happen. So we are aware that, don't blame your reporters, by the way. Guys out there or people like you, we are aware that there is a group of media personalities, I think the editors who sit behind, who actually sieve news and decide, this is not news we want to do. Because, for example, in that function, which was really Thanksgiving for Governor Ruto, it was choreographed to look like it is about NASA, the National Super Alliance. Yet it wasn't really. But I actually watched your analysis yesterday, especially KTN, and you could just tell the choreography is to try and propel the personality of, say, Mudavadi and other guys, and they actually even said something like, party leaders come to the aid of Waiguru. That was not it. I mean, if you read your newspaper of yesterday, it was really pathetic. The headline is meant to catch, to endear people to buy the newspaper, that these leaders, governors, come to the aid of Waiguru. But I was there when they were saying, yes, Waiguru may have been involved, but the big boss man, who is the big boss man, who actually must answer questions. They even asked for Ruto to be summoned by the committee. So I think...
because of time, we'll have to wind it up right there.
We need a whole session to talk about the media.
We need another session to talk about media, and I'll invite you for the newsroom.
Yes.
One of these days, evidently, you have a lot that you have to say about media and how we report. However, I'll still mention that we've given you the opportunity, and this is an opportunity that, you had an opportunity to speak to Kenyans and give the... Although I did listen to part of what you had to tell the people, and to be very honest, I was struggling to find something new, something different. It sounded like any other politician castigating and throwing their hands at Jubilee.
No, I spoke about corruption. I spoke about how corruption is killing Kenyans. I spoke about SGR. I spoke about NYS. I spoke about Ministry of Health. And I told Kenyans that President Uhuru should take responsibility. I said he must resign. So really, if that's not news, I don't know what news is.
We'll have to wind it up right there. Ekuro Aukot, Dr. Ekuro Aukot, who is also the leader of Third Way Alliance and also is going to be a presidential contender come 2017. So, of course, the question that we had asked you earlier on, and I'm going going to be reading and giving you the poll result later on, is whether you would vote for him as president. Maybe at the beginning of the show it was not clear. Possibly it is clearer now whether you would vote for him. And you can tweet that. I'll be giving you the results as we go along with the show. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back. Those of us on KTN News, today is Tuesday, and it is... So Life and Style is going to begin in just a bit. Those of us on KTN News, we've got some news updates coming up. Then later on, we'll be talking about your money and find out how you negotiate your salary. Do stay with us.
This is KTN News.